And hello, now in English. We're back here to second day of Agile Testing Days in Chicago. I have a very good friend, Damian Sinadinos,
Correct.
Rocket, who I met almost exactly a year ago
hmm
in QA or the Highway in Columbus, Ohio. Spoiler alert, we'll be there again. And amigo, for the people that do not know you, please share a little bit about you, the awesome things that you have been doing, so that they know you better.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Oh, I
I'm
love
always
this.
super happy.
All right, Damian Sinadinos, you pronounced it correctly. I pronounce it wrong sometimes, so no worries.
Okay.
I've been in testing since 19 years old. Back in 1993, I dropped out of school and became a software tester. And I spent 25 years in software testing at 15 different companies around Central Ohio, in different industries, different size companies, different technologies, approaches, methodologies. I helped organize the QA, the Highway Testing Conference that you just mentioned for 9 years.
Oh,
That's near and dear to my heart. I love those people in that conference.
someplace, yeah. Can
Uh,
attest to that.
in 2014, I began speaking at conferences, and I'm a lifelong improviser. I improvised for about 15 years, like whose line is it anyway? And so my first talk was marrying my love of improv with testing, and I made a talk called Improv Your Testing, where I used testing principles and concepts. Principles and concepts from the area of improv to teach software testing. And that went well. I got another talk, another opportunity to speak. I made some more talks. And in 2016, I left my 9 to 5 testing job and became a professional public speaker full time. And I started my company, Ineffable Solutions, and that's my profession now is public speaking. So I go around the world and speak at different technical and testing conferences. And since my topic and focus is often soft skills, for lack of a better term, fundamental concepts that apply to anyone that breathes, all humans, I've started to break out and speak at non-technical events as well. College administrators, junkyard owners. It's applicable to everyone. Same talk,
I'm
different
gonna stop on that
audience.
a little bit later. But keep on.
Sure. And so I've been speaking for quite some time. The pandemic threw a monkey wrench, some trouble into that plan. I stayed home with my family and my children for a while and helped them through the pandemic, through their schooling at home. During that time, I got back into art. I'm a lifelong artist, so I started drawing. I have a website called idrawstrangers.com,
I've seen it.
which is where I draw strangers out of kindness, and sometimes that leads to small commissions. So that keeps me busy and happy and brings a little kindness to the world. Um, I also am an author. I took my love of improv and I created a children's book called Hank and Stella and Something from Nothing. And you can read that at hankandstellabooks.com for free. So I go to elementary schools and I read that to children to teach them life skills through improv. And more recently, I have become a substitute teacher at elementary schools. So around Central Ohio, I go and ages grades kindergarten through 5th grade. I substitute teach, and I find it very rewarding. It's certainly not about the money. Teachers are severely underpaid in the States, but it's a great need. I love it. The children love it. The teachers love it. And so that's another way that keeps me busy. But I am a professional public speaker, and this is this is how I make my most of my money.
It's I'm having trouble checking where to start, but
I'm hard to label.
and all the journey and everything that you described, there are so many components. It's interesting to me that the quality side that you started there. That did you do any engineering, or how did you end up in quality?
No, actually, when I was a young child myself in elementary, early middle school, rather than throwing the ball in the backyard with my father, he bought me a TRS-80 color computer. So he was an electrical engineer by trade. He was a Greek immigrant and went to Ohio State University late in life, became an electrical engineer and a computer software enthusiast. So he bought his son a computer, and I taught myself the basic programming language in 4th grade. And so I had been around computers quite some time, very adept by the age of 19, when I was offered the job at CompuServe in their quality assurance department. And soon after, I dropped out of school because I was making money, learning a lot on the job, and I really didn't see the need for a degree. And the rest is history. So that's kind of the genesis story of how I became into computers. As many testers, I fell backwards into the career. It turned out to be something that I had a passion for, the way that my mind works, the critical thinking, the creativity married together. It was something that I enjoyed, something that I was good at, and so I spent 25 years doing it.
Wow. And it's you point out first, give your kids a computer with programming languages. That's an awesome thing that helps many many of the people that I have interviewed here started like that. My dad was a developer, teach me, gave me that. I remember my dad is a mathematician, astrophysicist, something like that. And one day he brought the Texas Instruments
Yeah.
with, I think it was QBasic,
Okay. That sounds
one of the
familiar.
all languages. And I was 8, 9 years old, and was drawing a giant, like 5 blocks that supposedly looked like a giant. And that was like my first introduction, similar to you, like,
Yes.
oh wow, this toy is interesting. What can I do with it? Then video games came and different interests. And you point out that very well, that then quality becomes like an accident, or pulls us back into it. I never dreamed or thought of being a QA person, or it was even like demeaning at when I started, like, not
Hmm.
why a tester, me, no, please, no. And now it says awesome, please come to testing. And that switch that got you back from, um, pulled you from be a dropout, because we were talking earlier, like, do you really need a career for this title, for this thing, and especially in IT. And nowadays with, I'm sure it's a relief to not to have any college debt, or any
Very
of those
much.
things, right?
Yes.
Which is becoming mainstream. Many people are saying, like, why do I want to go to this college and pay for tuitions and the accommodations, you have to stay at campus, all those things. In computer science, I can become a very good developer by myself,
Hmm.
YouTube University, so many sources. And it's mind blowing that you chose that path, learned it almost by yourself, and started to excel.
I'm teaching the same thing to my children. Rather than just go with the societal expectations of graduate high school, go to college because it's expected, I teach them to think critically, to find their passions, to find their talents, their skills, develop those that interest them, and go in that path. If that happens to take them to college, then so be it. But if not, then there's nothing wrong with that either. So
No,
I really like to encourage that in my own children.
I love that perspective, because it's something that, in some places, that college degree may be a situation, but I'm sure that we're about to cross a threshold where it's like, something, it's the same, probably a certification or some way to demonstrate that you know how to develop, or do QA, or automate, or any of the things that we do here, will be more valuable than a bachelor's degree
Hmm.
with all the knowledge around. So interesting times that we're having now, and we have another example here that is a success story of, like, look all the places that I got to, not necessarily through a bachelor's degree. I mean, it's still, if it's in the cards for you, I'm not trying to convince you otherwise, but
Correct.
the world is changing, and that's incredibly interesting. But then you took a peculiar turn to improv. How that happened, and it's something that you're the third person today, well, not in this conference, that brings improv to me. I am starting to consider I better get into that, or feel like I have been doing it a little bit here and there without knowing. But
Yes.
how was that?
Well, first I'll say I believe that everyone improvises. Everyone has ever lived, because you leave your house and you go to
Life
work
is
and
not planned.
correct. We encounter unplanned things all the time, and rather than just freeze and shut down, we improvise. We constantly improvise. Improvising on stage is a little bit different. You're trying to entertain an audience, so there's a purpose to it, and there's many other reasons that people do it: for money, for enjoyment, for practice. But I'm a big believer in improv, because improv is really a lot of valuable life skills wrapped up. Skills like collaboration. When you're improvising with folks on stage, you're collaborating. A diverse improv team is far more powerful than a homogenous team that's all the same. Um, the concept of yes and, agreeing and adding to. There's many different principles in improv that I think are useful in life. So I often suggest to folks, for certain problems that they present me with, that an improv 101 course may be valuable. They say, I don't want to perform on stage. I say, well, if you go all the way through the course, at the very end, you might end up improvising on stage. But at the beginning, it's about learning valuable life skills that may help. If you're shy, become less shy. If you're going to do public speaking, it can help you with that. It can help with a variety of different human problems.
That's that's amazing, because uh, personally, and knowing some of the speakers here, I know you mentioned being introverts, or being able to deal with that, get on a stage, or be, because even to some people it's complex to be here in these events. Come to a conference, please, you'll know a lot of people. And there's a lot of improv, like, hey, what do you do, who you
Mhm.
are, and all these conversations. And it's not necessarily that you have to drink the whole Kool-Aid, as you very well said. Like, gather the lessons and the learnings that you will need. I love that recommendation because
And
it goes along with critical thinking. Up to
absolutely.
where is that you need what is being taught, right?
Here's an even more abstract way that I think improv, which again is a wrapper for fundamental concepts, the same things that I speak about on stage as a speaker and teach the children in the book. They're fundamental, important concepts, basic concepts. And improv is a wrapper that makes them more palatable and interesting. For example, excuse me, as an improviser on stage, I'm not Damien, you're not Leandro, you're someone else, you're a character.
Mhm.
And so to be that character and embody that character, you have to think like that character and act like that character. And what you're doing is you're altering your perspective. You're seeing through someone else's eyes, acting like that different person. Perspective is a type of relativism. It's relative to someone at some time. And so actors do this when they play a role in a movie or a television show or a play. They're not themselves on stage, they're acting like someone else. Learning to develop that skill of developing a different perspective and seeing how someone else, that helps develop your empathy. Empathy, relativism, perspective are incredibly important human skills to be able to see how others see, feel how others feel, act how others act, and understand those concepts, not only to help you deal with other humans, but for instance, we're at a testing conference. It's an incredibly important skill for testers to be able to understand their users. Pretend like you're an actor. You're not testing, Damien's not testing the program. I'm testing as a proxy for the user, as
Mhm.
someone else. How might they feel if they encounter this problem? How might they act if they do this thing? So it's an incredibly valuable thing. And learning about relativism and perspective, you can take college courses and you can learn in different ways, and it might be a little boring, but learning about it through improv is fantastically fun. So when I say people take improv, they say, why? I say, well, for one thing, it'll teach you empathy and relativism, heady, deep concepts that will help you in every area of your life, including, for instance, testing.
It's and you just when you mentioned like having this persona that becomes I have been doing that. I again introvert, hard to be on a stage, but trying to. I know many famous, and I know I read it somewhere that this is a technique. Does it
Mhm.
have a name? Just really.
There's different some is method acting where someone will go and ride along with the cop before they play a cop in the TV show or something like that, where they truly embody it. Other people do a little bit of research and they learn what they feel is sufficient to embody that character, sufficient for the purpose of acting that character in a TV show or a movie. So there's different ways of approaching it and different labels, but generally speaking, they're all the same. Being able to think, see, feel like a different person.
I can't remember which. There were some famous that they even created a character with another name when they were on stage,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not me, the one who is exposing him or herself in
Vulnerable.
stage. It's
Sure.
like this character.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's Senor Performo who is up there, and I
Wonderful.
totally project it, and it's like, if Senor Performo is booed, it's Senor Performo, and I don't. I'm safe,
Yes.
and it is very important, and I'm super excited to find out that it's an actual recommendation. I saw it somewhere and I started doing it. And all these techniques that I think are useful for QA and doing, like you were saying, I'm proxy for this conversation with software and the project and the requirements. But I feel in the daily life, as you say, it's important where we have to be in different circumstances. Reminds me of I saw the Jim Carrey, the Mask movie,
Mm-hmm.
where they
Ah,
said we
yes.
wear masks and we become different, and that's improv, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's what learnings and what recommendations did you get from these things that you have seen are useful, or for you, your personally?
It's applicable in so many ways. I feel it's truly just human skills that apply to everyone. Sometimes I'll be presenting something at a business analysis, a BA conference, or a developers conference. Same talk, same, and I'll tailor it towards the BAs or tailor it towards the developers. And this is how these improv or different fundamental concepts like relativism, causality, semantics, linguistics, modeling, the benefits and limitations of models, very, very deep topics, epistemology. This is how they can help you be a better BA. This is how they can help you be a better developer, how they can be a better tester. And I apply them to those contexts. Very often at the end of the talk, someone will come up to me and say, Damien, I appreciated that. I got a lot out of it. I can definitely see how it'll help me be a better business analyst. However, I also see how it'll help me with my relationship with my father, Or someone else say my relationship with the kids. I saw elements of what you said today that can help me better deal with my kids and better talk to them and communicate. I say, I appreciate that. It warms my heart, but I'm not surprised by it, because really this isn't about being a better BA. It's about being a better human. This isn't about being a better tester. These are human skills that you can apply to testing or BA or being a junkyard owner or anything.
So now that you brought the junkyard owner, how that story goes? I'm very curious when you mentioned, and you mentioned that there were other peculiar environments where you have had to
Mm-hmm.
had the opportunity to share this knowledge skill that you have. What was the junkyard thing?
That was a friend of mine that worked in the automotive industry, and he knew that I was a speaker, and we were just friends outside of a professional aspect. But he got curious and he began to watch some of my videos online, and he was in such a position that he helped organize one of their national conferences. And he says, I think that your messages would apply to my folks. And with a little bit of tweaking and tailoring, I said, of course, every time to the context. And so I learned more about his business and the people. And I tweaked and tailored one of my talks called More Than That, which is about the labels that we put on ourselves and the labels that others put on us, and how you can control some and you can't control others. And any single label might be true, but it's not holistic. We're complete holistic humans. And it's important to being a BA or a developer or a junkyard owner, somebody that might pigeonhole themselves or put themselves in a box and think and introduce themselves and say, I'm just the owner of a junkyard. I'm just a person that works at a junkyard. And I'd say, you're not just anything. You're much more than that, which is the title of the talk. You have all these other labels. And if you can start to see yourself in a more holistic way and have others see you that way, you can find all this unrealized potential that you can use at the workplace. Rather than just doing your job, you can help in numerous other ways. And not only that, in your life too, you can explode with potential.
You know, this is yesterday I was mentioning. I generally identify a topic in a conference, an event, and it feels to me like this one is like the labels and boundaries that we put on ourselves and on our environment. You just made me think of there's this study where the labels that we put on ourselves or the society goes both ways. um, affect a lot how we did experiment. Bunch of people, similar intelligence. They gave white robes to each one of them. I don't know if you know
No,
that
go on.
experiment. And they divided them, and they told one side of the group, "You are those are lab robes. You're like scientists," and the other ones, painters.
Okay.
Same robe, same thing. And they did the IQ or intelligence test to both groups, and the scientists ended up higher and the painters ended up lower because of those labels.
Those labels.
And
Yes.
it's super interesting that we gotta be careful how do we put them. We have that big time in QA. I'm a developer, I'm a QA, I'm not crossing that threshold. Why do I should learn development or vice versa? And I think that's also very interesting that I'm just a developer. Why am I gonna be doing this? Yesterday talking to Jenny Bramble, she also said like at a point, I'm I'm not into that realm. Janet Gregory was sharing a little bit around that, and it's incredible how powerful it is. How
It's interesting to me that oftentimes when you meet someone, one of the first questions asked, or one of the first things, pieces of information they offer up is their job title or their profession. Say, oh, hi, what do you do? Rather than who are you? What do you do? And people introduce themselves as their job title, their profession. And often when they look in the mirror, that's what they see. They see their job title, they see their profession. And I introduced myself at the beginning. I'm a substitute teacher. I'm an artist. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a tester.
here
I'm a
figuring out
son.
life.
I'm exactly. I'm a podcast guest right now. I'm all sorts of things. And that doesn't make me more interesting or more unique than anyone else. Everyone else is exactly the same. Perhaps they haven't realized it. And that's what this talk is trying to help people realize, that everyone is as diverse, has as many interests and skills and talents, but sometimes you don't see them because you're all bound up in your professional title.
It's a little bit like the horses, and you put
Yeah, the
yourself these
blinders.
things you won't be able to see elsewhere.
Yes.
And it's interesting, and I love that we have this side of things, because when we're on many conferences, what we will learn is how to automate this and the technology of that, AI lately. But this is the human side that is so important to also keep analyzing and keep improving or working on. Many times when these recommendations from Lisa Crispin was earlier here, what would you recommend? And she's like, read books, 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 books. more experience, and that's like that helps in QA, but that helps you in general for life.
Hmm.
And many of the recommendations that you are giving, they translate to everything. I mean, you become a better quality assurance expert, engineer, whatever role or label you put on
Hmm.
yourself. But it helps you for life, and it's important that we keep addressing this different. It's a holistic view, right?
Yes.
And in that sense, what are the biggest recommendations or things that you like to help people or suggest, or like earlier, like read?
Hmm.
Which ones do you like the most? Which ones?
I think that it's important that people talk about what's the future of X, what's the future of testing, what's the next 5 years, what do we look like in 10 years in different industries, and I think that tools are fantastic, new technologies, new processes, new inventions. The shiny new thing is very, very interesting and popular for good reason. However, I feel that sometimes there's a lack of understanding, a defocusing on the fundamental concepts that so many that I mentioned earlier, relativism, causality, epistemology, that form a solid foundation on which to build all the shiny new things, the new tool, the new technology. And without that foundation, it's going to be necessarily shallow. Imagine, I wrote this recently, imagine trying to teach someone the concept of multiplication, but that alien or child has never understood and does not understand the concept of addition.
Hmm.
Multiplication is essentially repeated addition. So if you tried to teach someone 3 times 5 is just taking 5 plus 5 plus 5, and they say, what's a plus? Adding, addition. They say, what's that?
What's
I don't know
addition?
what that is. They can't possibly understand multiplication because they don't understand addition. Maybe they have a multiplication table, and the table says 3 times 5 equals 15, and they can memorize that fact. But that's rote memorization. It's very shallow. And if they encounter a multiplication problem that's not in the table, they won't know how to handle it because they lack the underlying concept.
Hmm.
So the underlying concept in this case are things like relativism, empathy, epistemology. Those are the underlying concepts that help people better understand the tools and the technology and all the other things. I'm talking about technology and testing
Hmm.
right now, but in all areas of our lives, I think that if you better understand those fundamental concepts, some are philosophical, some are societal, understand those things, it will provide a much stronger foundation for you to be able to build in whichever direction you're taking your life.
You have mentioned this principle several times in this talk. Mind elaborating them, relativism. Uh,
Sure, epistemology. How do you know what you know? Somebody says, "Oh, I know that it's raining outside." Okay, fantastic. How do you know that? Have you looked out a window? Did somebody tell you? Is it secondhand information? If you looked out the window, did you go out and feel the rain? How do you know what you know? That's a ridiculously simple example. But of course, if you take that to different areas, somebody says, "This is a bug." How do you know? How do you know that it's a bug? This works properly. How do you know that? How do you know what you know? That's roughly epistemology, digging into how do you know the things that you know.
Makes me think of the tree if no one listens to it, and
In the
the,
forest,
uh-huh.
yeah. Relativism, perspective, subjectivity, and you can't learn about those things without understanding empathy. And those are all very related. And of course, that's not only important to being a tester, but to being a human being, to be able to relate to people that you know little or perhaps nothing about, and trying to understand their point of view so that you can better relate with them. The internet's a wonderful invention, allows people to instantaneously communicate with anyone else anywhere at any time. And it's horrifically terrible because in the past, tribes would communicate with each other and they knew each other because they were a single tribe. And maybe you knew a little less about the tribe down the road, but you could still communicate with them sufficiently because they weren't too far removed.
Hmm.
But the tribe on the other side of the country or on the other side of the world, if you were to interact with them, you wouldn't know their background, their history, their experience, so communication would be difficult. So now I'm communicating with someone from Germany or Japan or Canada. I don't know their background, their upbringing, but yet I'm trying to communicate them at a deep level.
Collaborate and even.
It's going to be impossible because I don't know enough about that person. So it's wonderful and terrifying at the same time. But if you understand the concepts of relativism and empathy and perspective, I can realize that, boy, I don't know anything about this person from Germany. I'm trying to communicate at a deep level. Maybe it behooves me to ask more questions and better understand some things that would make me understand their point of view a little bit better. I would never have asked those questions if I didn't understand the concept of relativism.
Hmm.
Causality is so important, understanding the relationship between cause and effect and a many to many, and the root cause. It's such a familiar phrase, and I sometimes joke that a root cause field in a defect tracking system should only have one value, and that value should be Big Bang, or creation, or whatever your worldview is. Because if you dig down deep enough, that's where it started. So root cause is a misnomer. It's a good idea that encourages people to dig deeper, but causality, understanding the concepts of causality, can help you better understand and dig towards more meaningful, deeper problems to help you find more meaningful, deeper solutions. Modeling, everything that we say or think or do is based off of some type of model, a physical or a mental model. So you have to understand how can models help us in the thing that we're trying to accomplish? What are the limitations of models? Those are some more fundamental concepts.
Wow. Because so many of these components, when you were saying models, perspective, how you put and assemble, when you were mentioning what is like a foundation, just made me think several years ago, I was called to an organization. Can you teach this person performance testing? Let's go. I mean, my boss sent me. And this person had an administrative background. What do you need to teach him? Oh, he needs an IT degree or something because there are so many things that he lacks, and I cannot like build on top of nothing. No, no, no. But give him the basics of performance testing. He won't get them, but okay, let's see. And as you say, kept asking like, hey, and why this, why that, and
Yes.
the bottom, and they wanted formulaic things, and life is not formulaic. Performance is even less, and all these skills that you're mentioning are super important. And you have a talk later today.
Yes.
What are you going to be talking about? I mean, I can see a little bit. Where
Th-
is it going?
This talk is my newest talk I've developed. It's called "Is This Joke Appropriate?"
Uh-huh.
And it's a funny name that might be a little misleading for the content of the talk. It's a talk about risk, which is a very important topic to me. And I've sat through many different risk trainings, and I've learned a lot and read a lot about how to assess risk and mitigate risk. And all the trainings and all the things I've read are rather dry, in my opinion. And it's an important topic, but it's not necessarily exciting. So I'm also a lifelong lover of comedy and humor and jokes. And I know a lot about it, and I study comedy. And as an improviser, I'm doing comedy on stage. So I decided to marry those two concepts and talk about the risk of telling a joke that's deemed inappropriate. And when something is deemed inappropriate, an inappropriate joke, you can have undesirable consequences. Those are bad things. Nobody wants bad things to happen. So we don't have crystal balls. We can't see the future. If we could, it would be very easy to avoid risk. You just rub the crystal ball and see what bad thing's going to happen, and then don't do the thing.
Don't stand there.
But we don't have crystal balls, but we can gain insight into the things that we're about to say or do by thinking about different factors. Parents often tell their kids, think before you speak. And the parent says, that was some good parenting, but they don't tell the kid what to think about. So this talk gives people different things to think about, different factors, considerations before telling your joke. It can give you more information, more insight to help you make better judgment about whether a joke might be deemed appropriate or inappropriate. It's not infallible. You can still fail, but you'll make better decisions with more information, more educated decisions. So while I talk about all this in relationship to jokes, how to consider these different factors to help you make better decisions, tell more appropriate jokes, avoid inappropriate jokes, avoid unwanted, undesirable consequences. And then at the end, the punchline is I turn it all and I say these same factors can be used for anything that you say or do. Anything is risky. Anything that you say or do, there's risk involved.
Especially nowadays with cancel culture and all those things.
That's part of it. But as reporting a bug as a tester, deciding which things to test and which not things to test, there's risk there. How do you report your results to an executive or a developer? There's a risk there. And if you approach that without mitigating it, without thinking about it, without assessing the risk, bad things might happen, undesirable consequences. So you can use this framework, these considerations that I present as a way to avoid inappropriate jokes. You can use those same things to help you make more appropriate decisions when testing, when reporting, when deciding what to test. It helps you make better decisions and avoid those undesirable consequences.
I like a lot the key component that you mentioned, decreasing risk, because we will never eliminate it.
Correct.
100%. There's going to be always like a defect that they test that we didn't think about, and it went through and it's in production. Oops, well, we improved. And the same with our actions, as you were saying. How detailed should I be with my defect documentation? Is it like it broke? Nah, that's not good. But then you tell War and Peace in a novel
Too much.
for that it might be too much. And those criteria for and I see a pattern as well here with common sense or critical thinking that is super important and tied up from what you are going to be teaching or talking about today. And Well, being conscious of the time,
Mhm.
also, I want to give a shout everyone if you want to learn a little bit more, because it's not only QA with the amigo Damien. It's mindfulness, learning, improv, life skills, and it's super important to have this in conferences, in events, privately. I'm sure that you also help
Mhm.
when needed, or organizations. Uh, Give a shout, because this is super interesting. Check the book, give it to your kids. It's for what ages would you recommend?
I'd say ages second grade through fourth or fifth grade, primary school kids.
Super important. The critical thinking
Hmm.
fosters it and promote it. And well, if people wants to get in touch with you, amigo, where can they find you?
Probably the best way is through my website, my professional speaking website. I have several for the book and for the drawing. My speaking website is ineffable-solutions.com, INEFFABLE-solutions.com, right
It's on the
here.
cap.
And that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me.
From there, you will find all the subsites, the contact information, and give him a call. It's awesome. His talks are very entertaining. And amigo, thank you so much to come. I love when we get into this kind of psychology realm of things. It's a passion. I also love
That
those
makes two of us.
intersections. Enjoyed a lot, and I hope to see you. I know to see you soon again. And thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. You're a wonderful interviewer.
No, I'm just.
You're not just an interviewer, but you happen to be a wonderful
I'm
interviewer.
covering my curiosity, I have to admit. But well, everyone, uh, we are on fire. I think we are gonna have a little bit more conversations in a moment. Damien, thank you so much.
Of course.
This is Agile Testing Days from Chicago. I'll keep reporting from here. See you in a moment. Adios.